You're listening to Big World Network.
Delroy Versus the Yshtari, Season 2, Episode 1, Snot Soup. Written and read by Baron Stevens. I must have gone through my entire list of swear words and insults toward Minx before I slumped against the locked oven door. This was it. I was about to be cooked to death, betrayed by my own bot. I should have known that the Yshtari would reprogram him to serve them just like the other bots. Unlike Earth ovens, this one had no window that would allow me to see out. I had no idea what was going on outside. I figured Minx was rolling around in circles, celebrating the demise of his old master. Sweat poured out of me like Niagara Falls. How much longer could I survive before I became Roast Delroy? Except, shouldn't I be dead by now? It was hot in there, but not as hot as an oven should be. Maybe Minx was slowly turning up the heat as a form of mercy, sort of like boiling frogs in water. The door opened, and I saw that obnoxious LED smile beaming down at me. "You can get out now, sir." I climbed out of the oven, glaring at Minx. "What in the world do you think you're doing?" "I had to convince the Yshtari that you were no longer a threat." He pointed to a bathtub-sized pot sitting on the table where they'd had me chained. "Now, please, climb into that pot." "What? You expect me to just hop out of the oven and into a stew pot? I don't think so." "Trust me, sir. I'm trying to help you escape before the Yshtari return." I looked around the kitchen. Where are they? "I convinced them to temporarily leave. Please, sir, you must hurry. They'll be back soon." "What are you cooking up in that addled processor of yours?" I climbed up onto the table. The pot was filled with some kind of greenish broth. It looked like snot. "I'm not getting into that." "Please, sir, I must insist." "Why?" "It's the safest way I know of to smuggle you out of here." "Yes, but in a broth? Can't you think of another way?" "Not really. After all, I am programmed for cooking, not exotic escape plans. Oh, and I'm sorry that the spirulina sauce isn't to the right consistency. I didn't have much time." "How do I know the Yshtari haven't reprogrammed you like those other bots?" "They did try, sir, but it appears that my processor was too old for the reprogramming to work." "Do they know that?" "No, but see? I told you having an older bot had its advantages." He flashed his smug grin. "Right, whatever." I looked back into the pot and stuck my foot in. "Brr, it's cold. I sure hope you know what you're doing." Against my better judgment, I climbed into the cold, syrupy liquid. "Okay, sir. Now lie down and put this apple in your mouth." He held it out to me. I don't like apples. I shivered as I eased myself down into a sitting position in the pot. "It's not for you. It's for the presentation." "What present?" I couldn't finish because he jammed it into my open mouth. "Now, relax and hold still. We only have about a minute before they return." I looked at him, feeling a mixture of anger and confusion. He opened up a container and picked up a brush-like utensil. "Now, hold still." He painted a foul-smelling red sauce all over my face. When I couldn't take it anymore, I spat the apple out and let it plunk into the liquid. It sat on top without sinking. "What are you doing?" For an answer, Minx picked the apple up and shoved it back in. It tasted like rotten algae. "Sir, you really need to calm down. Now, hold still and look cooked." Before I could spit the apple out again, the door opened and 2 blue Yshtari entered. I stiffened my body and made my eyes look as glazed as possible. They approached Minx and clicked several things to him. Minx clicked back and the aliens picked up the pot. As they lifted me, Minx grabbed some green garnishes and placed them on top of the syrup. I hoped I looked delicious as they hefted me out of the kitchen and through the outside door. The Yshtari stopped and loaded me onto a hover vehicle. It was an Earth design used for utilitarian jobs like hauling small amounts of cargo. The Yshtari must have taken it from one of the ships they hijacked. Minx clicked something to the blue shells before they turned around and went back to the kitchen. He climbed into the front of the vehicle and started it up. Once the others were inside, I spit out the apple. What just happened? They loaded you on here so that I can drive you to the guards' barracks to serve as a snack. You're not really doing that, are you? I asked, still not sure he hadn't been brainwashed by our friendly neighborhood lobsters. The vehicle floated off the ground. I'm sure they will find you quite tasty. What? Minx turned around and gave me that smile. I'm only kidding, sir. I'm taking you to a hole I made in the fence. Then we'll head back to the Rutherfords' Revenge. How did you make a hole in the fence without alerting security? I didn't. I kind of crashed into it. Oh, by the way, you weren't overly fond of that hover cycle, were you? I groaned. We started forward until I put my hand on his shoulder. No, hold it. I want to check something first. He stopped. What would that be, sir? I pointed at a spaceship parked halfway across the field. It was a small military transport that, at least on the outside, looked like it could fly. Let's check and see if that still works. It might be easier than trying to fix the Rutherfords' Revenge. Ah, good idea, sir. It would greatly cut down the risk of us getting caught. Exactly. Minx turned the vehicle toward it while I took on my cooked pose. There weren't as many Yshtari wandering about as earlier, but there were enough to give us problems if they grew suspicious. A minute later, we parked behind a half-dismantled scout ship next to the transport where we were mostly out of sight. I rotated my eyes as much as I could to see if there were any guards nearby, but it appeared all the Yshtari were on the other side of the landing field. Once I made sure no Yshtari could see me, I climbed out of the pot. Green ooze slid off me. I figured I looked like a giant booger. After getting as much of the slime off as I could, I dashed to the extended entry ramp of the transport and into the cool darkness of the ship. Minx turned off the craft, got out, and followed. This ship wasn't as big or as nice as Stella's, but at this point I didn't care. I looked around to allow my eyes to adjust to the darkness. The next thing I knew, I was spun around and had my face slammed into a bulkhead. Something pushed against my back, pinning me against the wall. Delroy, thank goodness you're alive, Stella said. She let go of me. Did I detect a hint of concern in her voice? I turned around, rubbing my face. I'd have preferred a hug instead. She snarled as she looked at the green slime all over her hands before wiping them on her pants. Sorry, I thought you were an Yshtari. Sorry to disappoint you. At the same time, I felt relief flood through me. But I'm glad to see that you're still alive, my love. This is wonderful. When are you going to get over this delusion of yours? She stepped back to examine the makeshift loincloth and green slime. Nice outfit. Thanks, I said. My tuxedo's at the cleaners. Minx made a noise that represented one of his snickers. Did you find the men? I asked Stella. I turned around and headed for the cockpit. Stella followed. No, there were too many guards. I've been biding my time and seeing if any of these other ships will fly. Will they? I asked as I sat down in the pilot's seat. Minx joined me in the cockpit. Stella stood in the doorway and answered. No. What's wrong with this one? It looks okay. Engine parts have been stripped. I've searched just about every one of the others, too, and they're all missing something essential. The only one left that they haven't dismantled yet is the cruise ship. Then let's take that, I said. She shook her head. I already checked it out. It requires a crew of at least 10 to fly it. Our best bet is to find yours and fix it. She patted a bag hanging from her shoulder. I did find a repair kit and a blaster pistol, at least. I guess that's something. Uh-oh, sir, look! Minx pointed out the window where 2 Yshtari guards had noticed the slime-filled pot sitting in the vehicle. They looked up from it and right at the ship we were in. They must have seen me through the window, since they turned and marched toward the entry ramp. That's not good. I don't suppose this crate has any functional weapons. It does, Stella answered. They don't seem to have much interest in laser technology. I noticed. I pushed the buttons that brought the weapons screen to life. It gave me a camera view from the bottom of the ship with a reticle in it. I used the control stick to guide the reticle onto the Yshtari. They unslung their weapons and quickened their pace. I fired. 2 blaster bolts streaked out and threw one of the guards. The other one fell aside from the blast and scrambled to bring its gun back up. I aimed and fired again, sending the creature to lobster heaven, or wherever their afterlife was. "Subtle," Stella said, nodding her head toward the front window. "Now every guard will be heading this way." "But it worked," I said. "A big enough blaster can cut through even their tough hides." Motion out on the landing field caught my attention. Stella was right. My little display of force had alerted every guard who was out on the field. About 30 of them rushed toward us. I smiled. Time for target practice. I lined the closest guards up in my sights and fired. Soon they were replaced with smoking craters. The other colored Yshtari scrambled away as if afraid. It only took a minute to finish off the rest of the red-brown shells. "Are you about done?" Stella asked. I looked up at the royal ship across the way. It was beautiful and artistic in a strange way. It had graceful curves that made it seem more like a sports car than a giant, dangerous ship. But inside sat the Yshtari queen, the one who encouraged her people to feed on my people, the one who deemed me unworthy to be fed to her slaves. Here was my chance to stop her once and for all. Besides, I promised her I'd have my revenge. I would never get a better chance. I pointed the gun at the ship. "Delroy, what's that look on your face?" Stella asked. "What do you think you're doing?" "Revenge," I growled. I opened fire. "You idiot! You dunglehead! Are you trying to make them angry?" "I don't care." I laughed as I continued firing, enjoying the sight of the beautiful streamlined ship bursting into flames and exploding into shrapnel. "This'll show your majesty how inefficient blasters are, you giant freakazoid monstrosity." I continued firing away at the side of the royal ship, laughing maniacally the whole time, until the blasters stopped working. I looked at the control panel and saw that the battery was drained. "Are you about finished?" Stella asked. I stood up. "Yeah, I feel much better now. Excellent therapy." "Sir," Mink said in a higher, panicked voice as he pointed out the window. Hundreds of red-brown Yshtari were storming out of the royal ship and charging toward us. Oh, crap.
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on bigworldnetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.